Hi everyone, in this video we're going over 5 top most mistakes that photographers take when you're doing 360 car photography in 2022. Most of these really applies to any kind of photography of any products, but we'll be focused on cars, so without further ado, let's get started. So, as mentioned, we're discussing the top 5 mistakes for 360 car photography in 2022. The first one is that when you do the photography, it is very important that you either do it very early in the morning or towards later in the afternoon or around the noon. So the goal is not to have the sun or capture against the sun in the screen, because when you do 360 car photography, you capture around the car like this. And it is important not to have the sun in the screen, because then it will create the opposite, and the camera wants to adjust the light, so it will create a washed up frame, which obviously we would like to avoid that. So we recommend very much early in the morning, or do it very much later in the afternoon, or do when the sun is up in the sky. So as you walk around, you're not going to actually capture it. Also, as you walk around, if you're using Glow3D app for the 360 photography, it will typically have a smaller frame, and this way you're not going to get a sun in the frame. So it is very important to do a photography, in summary, where you don't have sun in the frame. The second biggest mistake is brightness adjustment. So when you're doing the capture, almost any app, it doesn't even have to be Glow3D app for 360 photography, you adjust, or the camera would adjust the lighting and brightness based on the frame that you start the capture. So I'm going to actually do a little bit of demonstration here. So this is a good sample here. So brightness is very important. As you see here, the middle is very washed up. On the lower left side, it is all the way, the ISO is to the lowest section, and now we have this. So sometimes it might be a little bit on, and you would see the washed off. So you always want to move the ISO all the way to the left side until you see a desirable set. And if you still see very light, so let's say if I was doing this, right now I'm just going to show you the sky. It's sort of cloudy, which is a perfect timing. If you have cloud, means you have a nice diffusion of light, and you don't get a lot of shadows. So one important thing is that right now it is sort of cloudy. As you see, it's a perfect timing. You get a proper diffusion of light, but let's say if this was in the middle at noon, you would get a lot of light coming in. So one option is to go to shutter speed and increase the shutter speed. So it was in 190, and then I could, let's say, move it to 1500. So typically clients do the photography at the same time of the day, and they would also do the photography at the same location. So as you do a few times, the app will remember what was your setting, so that the next time that you do the capture, the setting would apply automatically. So now what I will do is that I will use this setting, seems to me good. I will just bring it back to, let's say, 120, because I'd like it to be a little bit more, has more light. The ISO is to the left, and the brightness seems okay. So this side is very important to adjust it. And the good news is that typically once you adjust it once, then you will be set up for the future captures. Third big mistake in 360 car photography in 22 is the distance from the car. I will do a little bit of demonstration here as well. So as you can see, the distance from the car on the top right, you have ultra wide angle. The good thing about ultra wide angle will permit you to have reduced distance. So here, I'm going to just do 1, 2, 3 steps. So I'm only 3 steps from the car, where if I am doing with other lens, let's say like a wide angle, in this case, I have an iPhone 13, I have to actually have more setback. And again, the lighting adjustments is once again different. I'm going to move the ISO all the way in, and this seems good. Okay, but the distance is very important. It might think in the first thought that, well, obviously, if I can do ultra wide and get closer for capture, it is a much better option, but that is not true. The challenge with ultra wide is that as you go around the car, so let's look at this screen here. As you see, you get close to it, you create this perspective that makes it very unrealistic for capture. So if you're doing ultra wide, you want to have a certain distance so that the proportion of the car doesn't create that extra perspective, which many people don't like it. If it is something you're doing at, let's say, a sport car, that might be a positive point. But in general, for typical 360 car photography, this is not a good option. So what we typically recommend is to try to have your distance on a wide angle if you're using an iPhone, or the standard lens if you're using any iPhone before iPhone X, and try to use a tele lens or a standard lens on an Android phone if you're using an older model. So the distance from the car is also very important. Obviously, if you're in larger cities where there's not much real estate and you have really limited, so the ultra wide could be the only option. But then what you can do, instead of, let me change this to ultra wide. So instead of starting with a point like this, let me adjust the ISO, yeah, and as you go around from the side, as you get to the edge, you could slightly go closer, so that as you're walking, you will be walking in a more of an oval shape instead of a circle, so that that helps you get closer to when you get to the site, because you will have less perspective, and then you can have a little bit more distance when you get to the corner. So you can walk in an oval shape as well when you're using especially our app Glow 3D. But I would assume this would apply to any other app that you're using for 360 photography. So the fourth mistake in 360 car photography is when you cannot have the phone stable, because when you walk around the car, we have AI algorithm that auto scales, auto aligns, adjusts all the movements of the hand when the camera moves. But it's still, if the original capture is more stable, the better it is. So if you're just using basically the smartphone and there is no stabilizers gimbal, what we would recommend is that try to hold your hand in this position. So don't hold it all the way straight like this. Don't hold it like straight close to you, or don't do it like that. It's just try to hold that, because these two would act like a gimbal. So as your body may go down, there is a chance that your hand is going to absorb some of that, so your movement is more stable. And then there are lines, as you see here, that when you move the camera, it's going to turn red, and that will give you a guideline that you're going out of balance. Again, we're fixing many of that, but if you can capture the original more accurate. And the second thing is try to have the car in the center of the screen. So if, for example, you're doing the capture and you go very far and the car is like at the corner, Sometimes especially if you're in a parking lot where you have so many other cars around, it will make it very difficult for our AI algorithm to determine which one you mean to be the main car, because we do capture shots and then each one the AI algorithm has to determine which one is the main subject of the photography. So the goal is to try to keep it straight, have your hand like this, and try to have the car always on the center of the screen. That will help us in the image processing, the quality, reduction of perspective, and many other benefits as you go through the capture. If for any reason you don't have a stable ground around it, let's say it's gravel, or not enough space to go around, so we also recommend gimbal, something like this. You can purchase them anywhere from $100 to $150. Very good quality. We do recommend Osmo Mobile 4, which is like this, and it will give you stability. So you just put it on and you do the capture. I don't have, unfortunately, with me with Mobile Osmo, but there's so many videos that will show how you can put it on and how you can use it. We also have a dedicated video about how to use a stabilizer in 360 car photography that you will be able to find it in our tutorial section. So try to have the car in center. Try to keep your hands with both hands and keep it stable, and try to have the car on center would be something that would significantly improve the image quality. So the fifth point, or the fifth mistake in 360 car photography, is the height of the camera towards the car. So you don't want to have the car very low like this. This is not a good point to start capturing. You also don't want to do it like this, very high. The best point is somewhere around where your eye is and maybe a little bit lower, because that also gives you much more room for creating stability. So holding both hands, that's where the phone is, maybe about a couple inches lower than the eyesight. And that's almost the same height as somebody would look in an eye view when they want to inspect the car, look at the car. So the height is also very important. The other importance is that as we take this and through the process of background removal, and we take it through our AI algorithm, when we place it into the background, this height is very important. So for example, this is a sample of the same car with the background removed, like here. And as you can see, in order to have a proper perspective sitting on the virtual turntable or in the background, it is important that the eyesight or the height of the camera is done properly. So that's it. The 5 top most mistakes for 360 car photography in 2022. We try to come out with new videos every year. You can also watch a lot of videos more focused on 360 car photography in our channel. Don't forget to subscribe if you'd like to see the videos we put almost every week. And thank you for watching.